Welcome, dear listener. You're here now, and there's no need to rush. Let the hum of the day begin to fade, and settle into the soft comfort of this quiet moment. Tonight, we drift far beyond the noise of the present, and far deeper than any single century. This is not just the history of a people, or a place, or even a time. This is the story of the stars. Their light has guided humans for millennia, through deserts, over oceans, across empires. They've whispered to shepherds in the hills and emperors on their thrones, to scientists in their lonely observatories, and to children staring upward from rooftops in every age. And yet, for all their ancient presence, the stars are always just beyond our grasp. In this quiet journey, we will not chase them, we will simply look. Gently. Curiously. Tracing the lives of those who watched, who studied, who imagined. Their rhythms became our calendars, their constellations our stories, and their slow movement across the sky, a clock of eternity. So, take a breath. Let it stretch long and low. As we begin our journey tonight, imagine yourself under a canopy of stars. The night is calm. The air, still. There is nothing to do now but listen. The stars have always been here. Let's go back, to when we first began to notice. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I am super curious where you're all listening from. So, drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. You may be lying still now. Perhaps the room around you is dark, the air cool. Perhaps outside your window, if you are very quiet, the stars are out. And if they are, then you are joined by millions of others. Not only those living today, but those who lived before us. Far before. Before cities. Before clocks. Before writing. They too watched the sky. So now, let's go back. Not by centuries, but by millennia. We begin in the deep past, so distant it feels like myth, but it is real. Imagine, the Paleolithic night, nearly 40,000 years ago. A world untouched by machines, by industry, by artificial light. A world of wind, of cold, of flickering flame. You are one of the early Homo sapiens, alive in a time of survival. Your home is a shelter of bone and hide, tucked into the edge of a forest clearing. Your day has been long. You've gathered roots, tracked animals. The children sleep near the embers, the smell of smoke and ash soft in the air. Above you, the sky stretches vast, black and velvet, spilled with starlight. There are no buildings to block the horizon. No haze from distant cities. Only the crackling of your small fire, and the quiet hush of wind through the grasses. Look up now. The sky is alive with movement. But not chaotic, no, it feels patterned. Rhythmic. Certain stars return to the same place in the sky each night. Others vanish, only to return again with the changing season. You notice. Your people notice. You do not yet have writing. But you have memory, and myth. The stars become story. That bright cluster in the winter sky. You say it is a hunter, forever chasing the fleeing deer. The sweeping band across the heavens. A spilled river of milk, left by a sky being in her haste. These stories are not just decoration. They are function. They remind you when to plant, when to move, when to prepare for cold. And more than that, they bring comfort. For though the world below changes, weather, danger, disease, the sky remains steady. A dependable mystery. Across time, this deep connection between humans and the stars begins to crystallize into culture. Let us walk now, slowly, across the ages. In the highlands of Namibia, the San people, among the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, have gazed up for tens of thousands of years. Their stories, passed from fire to fire, speak of celestial herds and sky bulls, and of people born from stars. They do not separate the heavens from the earth. For them, stars are ancestral, part of the great cycle of life, death, and return. In their rock art, we see humans dancing with animals beneath crescent moons. Not as decoration, but as memory, etched into stone so it would not be forgotten. Further east, in the lands of ancient Nubia, the people of Nabta Playa began to mark time with stones. Simple at first, then increasingly complex. They placed stones in circles and alignments that matched the rising of Sirius, the bright herald of the seasonal rains. To them, the stars did not just shine, they warned, they called, they guided. And then, in the lush floodplains of the Nile, stars became a calendar. The Egyptians watched for Sirius not as a myth, but as a signal. Its reappearance just before dawn meant the inundation was near, the annual flooding of the Nile. Without it, there would be no crops, no grain, no life. The stars became life's rhythm. Now sail with me, into the open ocean. To the islands of Polynesia, scattered like jewels across the Pacific. Imagine being aboard a double-hulled canoe, the wood creaking beneath you, the salt air sharp in your lungs. There is no land in sight. Only stars. But for these navigators, that is enough. They know the stars by name, by path, by season. The sky is not just above, it is a map. A soft, rotating compass of great detail. They memorize hundreds of star positions and understand how they shift as they sail. This is not superstition. It is science carried in the mind. On cloudy nights, they read the waves. Feel the swell patterns beneath the boat, shaped by distant islands. They navigate thousands of miles without paper, without metal, without clocks. Only by stars, and the passed-down memory of sky. And when they reach land, they give thanks to the stars. No matter where you look, on tundra, in desert, along rivers, people told star stories. To the Aboriginal Australians, the sky is the domain of the dreamtime, a realm of origin and creation. They read the emu in the sky, a constellation made not of stars, but of darkness, the black shapes between the stars, mirroring the birds on earth. To the Maya, the movements of Venus foretold war, weather, and change. They tracked the planet with astonishing precision, building temples that aligned with its risings. To the Inuit, the slow arc of the stars helped navigate across a white landscape where no other markers existed. The sky was a teacher, a friend, and sometimes, a warning. Even in ancient Japan, farmers celebrated the Tanabata festival, when the stars Vega and Altair, lovers separated by the Milky Way, briefly reunite. A tale of longing, reflected in the real movement of the stars. And to the Greeks, the stars became gods. But also, guides for sailors. The stars of Ursa Minor led ships across the Mediterranean. The patterns of the zodiac became tied to time, to birth, to identity. The stars, always, were above. But they were never out of reach. What does all this mean? It tells us that for tens of thousands of years, long before screens or books or formulas, people paid attention. They learned not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because it brought meaning, connection, peace. In every culture, the act of looking at the stars was both practical and poetic. It helped people plant. It helped them migrate. It helped them remember their ancestors. And it helped them make sense of the chaos below. Even now, in our world of constant movement and noise, the stars remain untouched. You can still look up and see what your ancestors saw. The same hunter. The same moon. The same slow dance. It is a comfort. A quiet echo across time. So imagine now. You are sitting at the edge of a fire in a world without noise. The embers glow softly. Children are curled against their mothers. The air is cool. An elder points to the sky, and begins a story. And as the story unfolds, you are not just learning about the stars. You are learning who you are. A person beneath the sky. And always, part of it. Let your breathing slow just a little. Let your thoughts float gently. You are still lying still. Still under a sky that has not changed. But the world around you will shift once more, softly, into the past. Imagine a city by the sea. A city where scrolls whisper from shelf to shelf. Where courtyards echo with footsteps on marble. Where the scent of crushed herbs and olive oil lingers in the warm air. This is Alexandria. Not the city of modern times. But Alexandria of the 2nd century, in the Roman Empire. A city of light, of learning. Founded by a conqueror, but nurtured by scholars. And among its narrow streets and grand halls, lives a man named Claudius Ptolemaeus. You may know him by his Latinized name, Ptolemy. Not a king, though the name might suggest it. Not a priest, though his reverence for the heavens was quiet and complete. He was a thinker. A mathematician, philosopher, astronomer, geographer. A man who did not seek fame, but understanding. And the stars were his chosen language. We know little about Ptolemy's personal life. And perhaps that is fitting. He did not write about himself. He left no diaries, no vivid letters, no tales of ambition or pride. Only books. Filled with observations, tables, and theories that would guide the world for over 1,400 years. Imagine him now. In a modest room. The window open to the sound of distant waves from the Mediterranean. A flickering oil lamp casts long shadows. He sits at a smooth wooden table, a scroll gently unrolling before him. A reed pen in hand. Ink-stained fingers. There is no telescope. No lens. Only his eyes, his instruments, and his mind. Outside, the stars begin to appear. One by one. In the order he knows so well. He watches them. Not just for beauty. But for movement. For pattern. Each star has its place. Each planet, wandering though it seems, has a rhythm. The ancient Greeks had tried to understand that rhythm before him. Hipparchus, a century earlier, had catalogued the stars and noted how they changed. The Babylonians, long before, had tracked planets with careful, ritualistic precision. Ptolemy did not begin the study of the stars. But he arranged them. With patience. With elegance. With a steady hand. He gave the sky a structure. Ptolemy's most enduring work is called the Almagest. The name comes from Arabic, Almagisti, meaning the greatest. And for over 1,000 years, it was just that. It was not a work of speculation. It was a manual. A detailed, methodical guide to the motion of the planets, the stars, and the Earth itself. It presented a universe that was, to Ptolemy, intuitively correct. The Earth at the center, motionless and firm. The sun, moon, and planets orbiting it in perfect circles. The stars, affixed to a great sphere, rotating slowly around us. He did not invent this model. But he perfected it, using epicycles and deference to account for the sometimes irregular paths of the planets. What looked like backward motion, retrograde, was explained with nested orbits, each moving in harmony. To our modern eyes, the model may seem flawed. But to Ptolemy, and for generations afterward, it was a triumph of reason. And, more importantly, it worked. His tables predicted eclipses. They helped sailors navigate. They offered a sky that could be known, measured, and relied upon. Imagine him again. Drawing arcs on parchment, calculating angles with nothing more than a dioptra or an armillary sphere. He did not rush. He did not guess. He refined and corrected, returning to the night sky again and again to verify each motion. There is no urgency in his work. Only steadiness. Like the stars themselves. Ptolemy's curiosity extended beyond the heavens. He was also a geographer. He mapped the known world using coordinates of latitude and longitude, a concept we still use today. Though many of his sources were imperfect, his goal was noble. To create a rational, measurable world. His maps included places he had never seen, India, Arabia, even China, placed not from imagination, but from mathematical triangulation and traveler accounts. Imagine him placing dots on papyrus, slowly connecting rivers, drawing coasts, estimating the curve of the earth before it was widely accepted. He also studied music. He wrote about harmonics, seeing in sound the same cosmic order he found in the stars. To Ptolemy, the universe was a system of resonances, mathematical and divine. The movement of the planets and the tuning of a string were not so different. And in his work on optics, he examined how light bent through water and glass, how the eye perceived the world, not as a mystic, but as a quiet observer. He was, in all things, measured. Calm. Precise. The Almagest would travel far beyond Alexandria. Long after Ptolemy's death, Islamic scholars in Baghdad and Toledo translated his works into Arabic. They studied, debated, and refined his tables. He was honored, not just for accuracy, but for elegance. In the great observatories of Samarkand and Moraga, his models were used to align calendars, track eclipses, and predict planetary conjunctions. Centuries later, in medieval Europe, Latin versions of his texts became foundational in Christian universities. To study the heavens was to study Ptolemy. Even when later thinkers, like Copernicus, Kepler, and Galileo, challenged the geocentric model, they did so through Ptolemy. They built upon him, refined him, gently contradicted him. The Ptolemaic system, with its crystalline spheres and careful curves, would give way to new ideas. But never with scorn. Always with respect. Because Ptolemy had shown that the sky could be understood. Not feared. Not worshipped blindly. But studied. With patience. With method. With care. It is tempting, in history, to focus on revolution. On great upheavals. On bold voices that shattered old models. But sometimes, it is the quiet minds that leave the deepest impressions. Ptolemy did not shout. He did not declare a new world. He did not overthrow anything. He simply looked. And wrote. And from those calm observations came a map of the heavens that guided humanity for over 1,000 years. A map made not of ink and parchment alone, but of trust in order, in rhythm, in the soft certainty of cycles. He lived in a world of political turmoil. Empires rose and fell. Alexandria itself would suffer earthquakes, fires, and conquest. But through it all, his stars remained. And perhaps that is the heart of Ptolemy's legacy. A gentle reminder that in a changing world, the sky endures. Not unchanged, but always present. So now, as you lie quietly, you might imagine Ptolemy, blowing gently on the ink of a finished page. Rolling up a scroll. Setting it beside a window where moonlight pools. His work is done for the night. He stands. The sky still glimmers above. He does not need to look again tonight. He knows the stars will be there. Tomorrow. Next year. For all the lives yet to come. And now, we follow that starlight again. To ancient places where time was kept not in clocks, but in stone. Where great structures rose not just to shelter, but to mark the sky. Let us begin again. In the quiet. In the hush between waking and sleeping. Where time grows slow and heavy. And stories become shadows. Now, imagine yourself walking across an open field. There are no fences. No buildings. Only rolling green. And rising before you, ancient, gray, and strangely familiar, stand the stones. Stonehenge. Their edges softened by time. Their tops laced with lichen. Each one tilted slightly, as if leaning into the long memory of the land. You move slowly through the grass. Your steps are quiet. The wind hums through the gaps in the circle. And somewhere deep inside, you feel it. This place was not built for shelter. Not for conquest. But for watching. Watching the sky. Because long before clocks or compasses, people marked time in stone. And they did not do it at random. They did it with precision. And with reverence. This segment is about those places. Where the earth met the heavens, carefully, purposefully. Where sacredness was not carved from faith alone. But from the slow, quiet movement of the sun, the moon, and the stars. We begin in Britain. But the circle is wide. And the sky, after all, touches every corner of the world. Stonehenge is perhaps the most famous of the ancient alignments. Its image is almost iconic, massive sarsen stones forming a circle, lintels set like teeth against the horizon. But what is it, really? A tomb? A calendar? A temple? We may never know all its meanings. But one thing is clear, it is aligned with the heavens. Each year, on the summer solstice, the rising sun casts its first golden light through the entrance of the henge, striking the center of the circle with eerie perfection. Thousands gather even today to watch it. But imagine what it meant thousands of years ago. To people who lived not by minutes or hours, but by seasons. To know the longest day of the year was not just poetic. It was practical. It marked a turning point. A shift in the balance between warmth and cold, growth and retreat. And so, the stones were placed not haphazardly, but as anchors for the sun. Smaller sites nearby, like Woodhenge and Doington Walls, suggest that these solstice rituals were part of a larger ceremonial landscape. Perhaps the entire region was a kind of open-sky temple, built not just with stone and soil, but with light. Imagine the care. Watching the sunrise every day for years, noting where it touched the hills. Marking it with posts, then stones. Returning, again and again, to adjust. Until, at last, the sun and stone became one. Now, follow the Nile southward. Into Egypt, yes, but even further. Into the western desert. Into what was once, long ago, a fertile plain. There, buried for millennia under the drifting sands, lies Nabta Playa. A stone circle. Older than Stonehenge by more than 1,000 years. Built by pastoral people who lived near seasonal lakes, Nabta Playa is small. Less dramatic than the British circles, but no less precise. Several of its stones are aligned to mark the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, an event that heralded the coming of the monsoon rains. Imagine what it meant to them. The arrival of Sirius in the dawn sky meant that water would return. That herds could drink. That life could go on. This was not just science. It was survival, wrapped in sacred meaning. Some archaeologists believe Nabta Playa may have included a calendar circle and burial tumuli, suggesting a blend of ritual and astronomy. Even here, deep in the sands, people looked up and built down. Now we cross oceans and centuries. To what is now the American Southwest. To the quiet red rock of Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Here, between 900 and 1150 CE, the ancestral Puebloans built massive stone structures. Great houses, some 4 or 5 stories high, aligned with extraordinary care. Each wall, each window, seemed to watch the sky. Many of these alignments point to the solstices, the equinoxes, the lunar standstills, those quiet shifts that mark celestial cycles. But perhaps the most astonishing is a single stone. High up on Fajada Butte. There, in a narrow crevice, 2 stone slabs lean against the cliff face. And behind them, carved into the rock, a spiral. This is the sun dagger. On the summer solstice, a thin dagger of light pierces the center of the spiral. On the winter solstice, it lands just at its edge. No wires. No gears. Just light and shadow, stone and sun. A cosmic clock, built by hand, known only to those who watched carefully. It is thought that this site was used not just to mark time, but to determine when ceremonies should be held, when to gather, when to prepare. For the people of Chaco, time itself was sacred, and the stars were its keepers. Now, let us walk further south, to the vast city of Teotihuacan, near present-day Mexico City. This city, built around 100 CE, once held over 100,000 people. Wide avenues, stepped pyramids, ceremonial plazas. But its layout was not random. The entire city was aligned 15.5 degrees east of north, a seemingly odd choice. But this angle matches the setting of the Pleiades star cluster and the rising of important constellations at specific times of the year. The Pyramid of the Sun, massive and imposing, is aligned with the Sun's zenith passage, the days when the Sun is directly overhead and casts no shadow. To live in Teotihuacan was to live in alignment. The cosmos was not something you looked at. It was something you walked through, every day. The city's builders were not only architects. They were astronomers. And possibly, priests. Their monuments of stone were monuments of time. Now we drift across the world again, to Cambodia, where the great temple of Angkor Wat rises like a stone lotus from the jungle. Built in the 12th century by King Suryavarman II, it is one of the largest religious structures ever constructed. But its beauty is more than architectural. It is astronomical. The temple is oriented west, toward the setting sun. And on the equinox, the sun rises directly above the central tower, perfectly framed. Researchers have found that many of Angkor Wat's elements also match the lunar cycle and the solar calendar. Its bas-reliefs may even encode celestial knowledge passed down through generations. As with other sacred alignments, the goal was not only beauty, but balance. To make a place where the heavens met the earth. We might ask, why did so many cultures across space and time go to such effort to align their buildings with the sky? The answers, perhaps, are simple. Because the sky was constant. Because the stars returned, when loved ones did not. Because the moon changed, when the earth remained hard. Because time could feel cruel. But the sun could be trusted. To align a temple or a tomb with the heavens was to anchor the fleeting. To place the human within the cosmic rhythm. It was also an act of reverence. Not worship of the stars themselves, always. But of what they represented. Order. Continuity. A kind of stillness that the earth could not provide. And maybe, just maybe, a bridge to the divine. Even now, archaeologists still puzzle over how these alignments were achieved. How did people with no telescopes, no satellites, no digital clocks create such precise markers? The answer lies in observation. In patience. Watching the horizon. Tracking the shadows. Marking the solstices year after year, until patterns emerged. It was not instant. It was generational. Knowledge passed down from watcher to watcher, as surely as stone is passed from hand to hand. Today, we admire the accuracy. But perhaps we should also admire the devotion. The willingness to sit. And wait. And learn from the sky. It is a kind of quiet we rarely allow ourselves anymore. And so, as you lie here now, beneath your own ceiling, perhaps you can feel a soft echo of that stillness. The sense that you, too, are part of something measured. That there is rhythm in the sky. And you are moving gently within it. Stone circles in Scotland. Sun temples in India. Carvings in Peru. Mounds in the Mississippi Valley. All watching the sky. Different people. Different names. But always the same stars. The same moon. The same sun. We live now in a world of seconds. Of urgent beeps and glowing screens. But once, time was told in light. In shadow. In stars. And the earth, quietly, rose to meet it. Imagine yourself now in the cool marble halls of a palace long ago. The air is heavy with the scent of burning incense. Faint murmurs ripple through courtiers dressed in flowing robes, the soft rustle of silk mixing with hushed voices. Above, through open lattices, the night sky stretches vast and clear, a deep velvet backdrop embroidered with countless stars. Here, in these spaces, the heavens were not distant. They were immediate. A guide. A mirror. A source of power. Throughout history, from Mesopotamia to Ming China, rulers and elites looked to the stars, not only to mark time or seasons but to divine their fate, legitimize their reigns, and order society. This is the story of those who governed beneath the stars, and how celestial knowledge shaped courts, politics, and daily life in the highest echelons. Classical building Babylon, the birthplace of celestial power. Let us begin in ancient Mesopotamia, in the city of Babylon. Thousands of years ago, Babylon was a thriving metropolis nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Its ziggurats reached skyward, temples were centers of worship and governance alike, and its people were among the first to develop astronomy and astrology, fields so intertwined they were nearly indistinguishable. Imagine the palace of King Nebuchadnezzar II, glowing in the desert twilight. Here, priests known as Chaldeans were more than spiritual guides, they were advisors to the king. They observed the sky nightly, tracking the movements of the moon, planets, and stars. Their knowledge was recorded meticulously on clay tablets. Every celestial event, an eclipse, the rising of Venus, the precession of Jupiter, was a sign, a message. For kings, these signs were prophecies. They foretold war or peace, famine or plenty, the king's longevity or downfall. In this society, the sky was a political script. And astrologers were its interpreters. The king's legitimacy, his divine favor, depended in part on how he understood and responded to these celestial signs. The heavens did not merely observe the ruler's fate, they wrote it. Imagine a night when the moon turned red, casting a faint, otherworldly light over the palace walls. The astrologers would convene, studying the omen, whispering their interpretations to the king. He would listen quietly, weighing their counsel, knowing his choices echoed not just on earth but in the stars. This was power bound with the cosmos. Crown Egyptian pharaohs, divine stars on earth. Travel now to the banks of the Nile. The pharaohs of Egypt were seen as gods incarnate. Their rule was absolute, their presence both political and spiritual. For the pharaoh, the stars were not distant points of light but manifestations of the divine. In the famous pyramid texts, the pharaoh's soul was described as journeying among the stars, becoming a star itself after death. Their temples were carefully aligned to celestial events. The rising of Sirius, known as Sopdet, marked the beginning of the Nile flood, the life-giving waters that ensured Egypt's survival. This star was deeply sacred, symbolizing rebirth and renewal. Imagine the court watching as the first light of Sirius crept over the horizon. A moment marked with solemn ceremony. Astrologers and priests advised the pharaoh on the best times to conduct rituals, wage wars, or sign treaties. The pharaoh's personal fate, and that of Egypt itself, was entwined with the movements of the skies. Astrology was not a superstition but a vital part of governance. Cherry blossom imperial China, the mandate of heaven and celestial bureaucracy. Now move across Asia to imperial China. Here, the ruler was called the Son of Heaven, a title that made explicit the connection between earthly power and the cosmos. Chinese emperors did not simply look to the heavens. They believed the mandate of heaven was granted or revoked through celestial signs. If the emperor ruled justly, the heavens would remain harmonious. If not, natural disasters, eclipses, or unusual celestial phenomena were interpreted as warnings. Imagine the imperial court, filled with astrologers, astronomers, and ritual specialists. They tracked comets, nova eruptions, and planetary motions. Their observations were recorded in vast archives, forming the backbone of Chinese astronomy. The emperor's court was a cosmic center, where rituals were timed to align with celestial cycles. This ensured that the emperor's actions resonated with the universe's rhythm. In times of political unrest, an unusual celestial event might be seen as a portent. The emperor might respond by increasing rituals, offering sacrifices, or changing policies. Thus, the stars held the power not only to guide but to discipline. Their movements were woven into the social fabric. Crescent moon astrology and elite daily life. For the elites, astrology permeated daily life. From choosing auspicious dates for weddings, coronations, or battles, to interpreting dreams and personal horoscopes, stars were an ever-present influence. Imagine a noble family in medieval Europe. Before sending a child off to marry, an astrologer would cast their chart to determine compatibility. Before going to war, a general might consult the stars for the best time to march. In courts from Europe to India, astrology was a respected science. It influenced politics, economics, and personal destiny. The rhythms of the heavens shaped the rhythms of the court. Candle contrasts with the common people. Yet, while rulers and priests held intimate relationships with the stars, the common people's experience was often different. Their lives were tied more to the cycles of the sun and the seasons, when to plant and harvest, when to prepare for winter. But even among peasants, folk beliefs and star lore were common. They watched the stars too, not to govern empires, but to guide their daily toil. For them, the night sky was a tapestry of stories, warnings, and comfort. The stars were friends in the dark. But the distance between courtly and common understanding of the cosmos was real. Elites held books, knowledge, and ritual. Commons held stories, songs, and superstition. Both connected by the same sky, but walking different paths beneath it. Shooting star, the star-linked ruler's legacy. Today, the legacy of celestial rulership remains. Our calendars, holidays, and timekeeping still echo ancient star wisdom. While modern science has shifted our view of the stars, their allure as symbols of fate, power, and destiny endures. Imagine now the silence of a palace long emptied. The stars continue their slow dance. The kings and queens are gone. But their stories, etched in stone and written in the stars, linger quietly. They remind us that long ago, beneath these same skies, humankind sought meaning and order in the vastness above. And perhaps, as you drift toward sleep, you too can sense that ancient rhythm, that calm certainty. The stars watch on, timeless and steady, a lullaby for the restless min. And now, we return. Slowly. Quietly. From ancient deserts and royal courts. From stone circles and star chambers. From myths, from measurements, from questions asked under candlelight and moonlight and firelight. We come back, to now. To this room. To this moment. To you. Outside, if the night is clear, the stars are still above. Still watching, as they always have. Still casting the same pale light across oceans, over mountaintops, between glass towers and quiet fields. Still whispering their slow rhythms to anyone still enough to listen. You have traveled far tonight. Not in distance, but in time. You've walked with the sand hunter on an African plain. You've stood beside the Nile as Sirius announced the floods. You've gazed through Ptolemy's window in Alexandria, traced shadow lines in the stones of Stonehenge. You've wandered through Mayan pyramids, Incan skies, and royal palaces echoing with starlight. And all along the way, one thing has remained constant. The stars. Humans have always looked up. Not because the sky changes us, but because it reminds us. Reminds us that we are small, but never insignificant. That even in the darkest times, there is a map above us, ancient and ever-turning. That we are part of a rhythm older than language, older than belief, older than thought. You may never build an observatory. You may never chart a planet's orbit or give a name to a comet. But when you look at the stars, you join every human who has ever done the same. And what a comfort that is. To know that above all our worries, our noise, our clocks, our crowded days, the sky waits. Quiet. Patient. Unaffected. Imagine it now, above you. Wide. Still. The faint arc of the Milky Way, a soft trail across the black. Planets gleaming like lanterns. Constellations shifting just a little each night. Moving, not fast, but in a rhythm you can trust. The same rhythm that marked the planting season in Babylon. That turned the temples toward sunrise in Chaco Canyon. That told a mother in ancient China when to expect the rains. The rhythm of their lives. And yours. And though we no longer need the stars to guide our steps, they are still there. For comfort. For beauty. For the quiet joy of looking up and wondering. So rest now, if you can. Let your thoughts grow slower. Softer. Let them drift, like clouds passing across a starlit sky. You are part of a story written not in ink, but in light. A story without end. A history written in silence, scattered across the heavens. And tonight, you've read a few lines of it. Let that be enough. Let that bring stillness. And when sleep comes, slow and silent as a shadow crossing the moon, know that the stars are still above. waiting, watching, turning, just as they always have. Good night.